Heads up.
Thanks. All right, welcome everyone. This is the July 20th Transit Paratransit Coordinating Committee meeting. Before we get started, I just wanted to take a look at the agenda and make a rearrangement. Item number 3 is a presentation of the draft comprehensive transportation plan. And I know a number of people have actually already seen the presentation. So I would like to move that to the end so that anyone who has seen it or doesn't have time doesn't need to sit through it. It is a fairly long presentation. So if that's all right with everyone, I'd like to make that adjustment. And let's go ahead and get started with introductions. A small group, so we'll just blurt it out, but I'll start. I'm Dana Teray with SCTA, and on the phone next to the computer, due to not quite figuring out technology yet, we have Dennis Battenberg, who's the chair of this committee.
Drew Nichols, SCTA.
April Pearson, Sonoma County Paratransit / Volunteer Wheels.
I'm Kathleen Cortez with AAA Area Agency on Aging, Sonoma County.
Steve Bertelbaugh with the Transportation and Land Use Coalition.
And I see Sylvia Martinez Palacios on as well. Maybe she had to take a minute before getting on. And I see John Gaffney from Golden Gate Transit just joined as well. Hello, we just are finishing up introductions. We got started a little bit late.
Works for me.
And I see Janet Spillman from SCTA just joined as well. So moving on to item number 2, it's approval of the meeting notes from May 18th. Does anyone have any comments or corrections on the meeting notes?
Dana, I think we might need to defer this until the next meeting since I think there's an absence of a quorum.
Thank you, Drew. I think you're correct. And this is the only action item on the agenda today, so we could include it with the in the next committee meeting. All right, well, let's move on to item number 4. For those of you who joined a little bit late, we rearranged the agenda just a little bit and moved the presentation for the draft comprehensive transportation plan to the end of the agenda. So we'll go ahead and do roundtable updates. Sylvia, would you like to start us off with an update from Petaluma Transit?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, it's a little quiet.
Hello, Dana.
Okay.
So Sylvia, it sounds like your microphone is further away.
Yeah, still not hearing you. Okay. Yeah, why don't we go to someone else and then get back to you? All right. April, would you like to give us an update on what's going on with Volunteer Wheels?
Sure, not a whole lot to update right now. Of course, ridership is increasing. Day programs are starting to open up. We're about 130 we got up to. Most days we're still doing about 109, 105. Looking for drivers, of course, desperately in need of drivers. I think that's about it for ours right now.
Thanks, April. And John, would you like to give an update on Golden Gate?
Not a lot to report from our end. I mean, I think since the last time I was able to attend the meeting, we've all gone to full capacity on the vehicles. Paratransit, we have our program is out for bid right now. We're in the middle of that process, so I don't have much of an update, but just to let the group know that we are out to bid. And yeah, I think that's all I have right now.
All right, thanks, John. And Mohammed, are you on representing Santa Rosa today?
Yes, we're going to talk about the paratransit. Good afternoon. The first thing about the paratransit, we move our buses to a new location for the people that want to visit us. The new location will be at 77 West 3rd Street. This is like next to the smart train station at downtown. Other than that, we're just picking up a little bit more rides. We're not 100% yet, but we're heading there. We have a couple of spots from the houses that we visit in the paratransit has been quarantined for 2 weeks they have like a high cases of COVID-19 Delta version. So that's the only thing we have right now in the paratransit. Yuri is in vacation. That's the reason why he's not here. Hopefully he will join the next time. And if anybody has any questions, so I can answer for them. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Mohammed. All right, Sylvia, did you want to test out your microphone again?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so with Petaluma Transit, nothing too different from the past month. We're still not pre-COVID ridership with paratransit. We're still about 4.5% down. We are charging for our rides now. We have seen an uptick for sure, but we're still not there. We haven't done anything too new, so our service hasn't changed at all. We're still doing the paratransit evaluations in-house. Yeah, there's nothing really too different going on.
All right, thank you. And let's hear next from our mobility partners. Kathleen, do you have any updates from the Area Agency on Aging or your partners that you'd like to share with the group?
Yeah, well, just all of our programs are seeing an increase in requests for rides. So of course we have the same issue with volunteers. We've lost a lot of volunteers during COVID, and so there's just an ongoing uptick in requests for rides and not being able to meet the demand due to the number of volunteers. We've had a couple issues recently with driver or riders not wanting to wear masks or wanting to take their masks off, and we still are requiring riders to wear their masks, just like in the FTA program. So we just need to constantly keep letting people know what the rules are, and that we still, because it is volunteer run and it is free to the passengers, that we do require them to wear masks. So we're seeing also an uptick in, the Delta variant in the county. So we are keeping the masks on and requesting both the riders and drivers to wear their masks. And that's about all that's going on here.
All right, thanks, Kathleen. So next on the agenda, item number 5 is an announcement for the MTC has a policy advisory council, and they are recruiting for members on that committee on the council, and recruitment is open through August 1st. I did just realize that link that is on the agenda is no longer working. I'm going to put another link in the chat, and if you need help getting it, you're interested and need help getting it outside of this, outside of Zoom, let me know. Basically, yes, they're just looking for applications by August 1st, and would encourage anyone who's interested to apply. So this is just an information item, but does anybody have any questions? Okay. The next item on the agenda is the Caltrans Bay Area Pedestrian Plan. The final plan has been released, and there is a link to that announcement in the agenda. It was likely about 2 years ago. We did talk about this plan at this committee, and had a brief presentation on the outreach tool that we're using to collect input about challenging as well as good places to walk around the state highway system. And so the tool that they used was Street Story, and they gathered a lot of good input, and the final plan is available now for the public. So I just wanted to let everyone know that that is there, and happy to take any questions or comments anybody has, but this is also just for your information. All right. Let's move on. I guess let's do public comment and then go into the back to item 3 for the presentation. Is there any public here wishing to comment on items not on the agenda? All right. Well, let's go ahead and start the presentation for the comprehensive transportation plan. I guess just to get a sense, we've taken this to a number of most of our committees, as well as our board, and we had a webinar this morning. So I was wondering if anybody here has already seen the presentation or heard it. All right. Well, great. I will turn it over to Janet to get us started then.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining, for your interest in the CTP. This presentation will be about half an hour, and then we'll have questions. And it's a team effort. So I will start it off by asking Drew to share the presentation, please.
Yep. I have lost my Zoom controls. Let's see where to go. Why is no one getting that one? There we go. Oh, all right, Janet.
Oh, there we go.
Sorry about that.
All right. All right. Thanks for joining us. I'm pleased to present the draft Comprehensive Transportation Plan Moving Forward 2050. This is an update to the previous CTP, which was approved 5 years ago in 2016. Changes to this plan include an update to the vision and goals and increased public engagement with community-based organizations to better connect with historically underserved members of the community. Many of our transportation issues are the same now as they were in 2016. We need more transportation options, and we need them to be implemented in ways that are thoughtful of the community's concerns and attuned to sustainability. The importance of maintaining an updated planning document is twofold. First, the Metropolitan Transportation Commission requires local transportation authorities, such as SCTA, to establish transportation plans that can feed into the larger Plan Bay Area, a federally required long-range planning document. Second, the SCTA is responsible for programming or allocating numerous state and federal funding resources to transportation projects. In order to meet these requirements, the SCTA needs a policy and planning document to help guide the programming process. If the SCTA does not meet these two requirements, it is at risk of losing critical transportation dollars. Next, please. Kickoff for the CTP was June 2019, which launched public outreach that's been almost continuous in one form or another since. A call for projects was released June 2019, and in late 2019, we began a 5-month process that culminated in an updated vision and set of goals that was approved on March 9th, 2020, the last time we were in person. Then activities went virtual and work continued on the current conditions that included an inventory of the transportation system, forecasts, and technical analysis, including performance analysis of the project list. Writing the plan itself has been the focus of attention this year. This presentation is to release the draft document. We'll be bringing it back to the SCTA for approval in September. Next, please. This plan has 4 chapters. In addition to that, there are 8 appendices. I encourage you to check out the appendices. There you'll find details of the public outreach, and you'll find technical information on the project list and performance and how the model works. Chapter 1 lays out who we are, why we plan, and what our priorities are. This is a photo from early outreach at the Community Action Partnership of Sonoma. Next, please. The SCTA has had a comprehensive transportation plan since 2001. The initial plan laid out priority projects and policies, many of which were successfully implemented, including mega projects like a carpool lane on Highway 101 and passenger rail service. Although some outstanding issues remain, like potholes and the need for more bikeways and transit, the plan serves as an important role in establishing how we need to address transportation needs and in guiding future funding decisions to address those needs. Next. Equity is a priority. As a transportation agency, we rely on demographic information, including poverty levels, to define geographic locations that can be prioritized for transportation projects. The communities of concern, now known as Equity Priority Communities, EPCs, along with Caltrans' disadvantaged communities, are useful tools to bring attention to underserved communities. Communities in need may not live in concentrated neighborhoods, especially in Sonoma County, where economically disadvantaged people are dispersed throughout the suburban and rural parts of the county. Addressing the whole population of disadvantaged people with means-based fares and other policies, along with more robust outreach, are steps toward equity. Next, please. Public engagement began with in-person meetings with the CDOs and at libraries, then morphed into virtual engagement, including a series of webinars. All the webinars are available on the CTP webpage. We will receive comments on the draft plan until August 13th in preparation for the final CTP in September. Next, please. These are the top issues of phase 1 outreach. And next, please. Similarly, here are polling results for Sonoma Transportation Sales Tax Measure taken around the same time. You'll see, I don't think you'll be very surprised by the top concerns in transportation. If we go to the next slide, please, you'll see the rest of the list. Next, please. In late 2019, the board reviewed performance of the previous plan and progress made on the goals overall. After a series of workshops, the board approved the vision and goals. The vision is connecting people, places, and goods as we transition our transportation network to zero emissions by 2050. Our guiding principles are to improve safety, equity, and quality of life. The goals are that our transportation system should be connected and reliable, safe and well-maintained, community-oriented and place-based, and be zero emissions. Next, please. Here's an overview of the transportation project types included in the CTP. The CTP is not a financially constrained plan like Plan Bay Area, but the reality of delivering projects is limited by funding. Greater project analysis and opportunity for decision-making will happen as funds are programmed. This list is not exclusive. If a spectacular project emerges out of the blue with a source of funds next year, after the CTP is approved, we can include it. That said, funding is a huge challenge. Maintenance is a considerable portion of the roadway improvements, and bike and ped projects have almost doubled. Several significant project types, including multimodal streetscape improvements, new technology, and TDM have been added. We have been working with staff and taking comments for 2 years, and we have $10 billion in projects. The big takeaway is that transit accounts for more than half of the project costs. The entire project list is available online at the CTP website, which I'll put in the chat as soon as I'm done here. Next, please. And Chris.
Thanks, Janet. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll be talking a little bit about the demographics and current travel behavior in Sonoma County. So every time we update the CTP, we take a chance to look at transportation and population as it is now, and then how we expect things to change in the future. So right now, there are about 500,000 people in Sonoma County, and we expect the population to increase by 5 to 20% by 2050. On this slide, we've outlined a few of the population characteristics for age and ethnicity. So on the left, you can see that we expect the population to continue to age in Sonoma County with the working age population. Folks between 25 and 64 dropping below 50% of the total population by 2050, and the senior age population growing to almost a third of the population by that same time period. So as the population changes and ages, we'll have different transportation needs and preferences. On the right, you can see that we also expect Sonoma County to become more ethnically diverse as we grow into the future in 2050. Next slide, please. So the future is always uncertain, but it's important to try and anticipate how the county will grow and change over time so we can address the needs of the changing population. So this graph shows estimated population, occupied housing units, and employment for current conditions, or 2019, which is the blue bar, and then a variety of different ways of looking at future growth. So directly to the right of the 2019 bars, you'll see the development pipeline, which represents projects that are in the development process at the local jurisdictions. So this represents short-term potential growth and projects that will likely be constructed in the next year to 10 years. To the right of that, you'll see the green bars representing general plan build out or maximizing local plans. So this looks at future growth potential for population, housing, and employment based on local zoning and local planning documents. And then finally, to the far right, you'll see the light blue bars representing regional forecasts prepared by the Metropolitan Transportation Commission and Association of Bay Area Governments for Plan Bay Area 2050. Next slide, please. So as you all are probably aware, housing and transportation costs in Sonoma County are high, and also the Bay Area region. The latest estimates from the Center for Neighborhood Technology show that transportation accounts for about 24% of household budgets in our county. So combined with housing costs, this accounts for almost 60% of total household budgets, which is higher than the Bay Area average. And there are a number of factors contributing to this. Wages are a little lower in Sonoma County. Average travel distances are a little higher, and the options for lower cost transit or lower cost travel like transit and walking and biking are a little harder to come by here. Next slide, please. So as part of the CTP update and with the support of our partners at the local jurisdictions, we were able to compile the Sonoma County Travel Behavior Study, which provides a wealth of information about how Sonoma County residents and visitors to Sonoma County travel. We learned that a good portion of travel in the county stays in the county, with about 90% of trips starting and ending in the county, and only 9 to 10% entering or leaving the county each day. Next slide, please. We also saw that 60% of trips are shorter than 5 miles, and about 30% are under 2 miles. So we also saw that trips that enter or leave the county make up only about 10% of daily trips. But since these trips leaving and entering the county are typically pretty long, they make up about 45% of total vehicle miles traveled. We also looked at the location of these longer trips, and a large portion of those are occurring in the Highway 101 corridor. So there's potential to shift some of those longer trips onto other travel modes like rail or express bus or into carpools. Next slide, please. So as we were looking at data from the travel behavior study and other data sources, we identified a number of opportunities. These are transportation opportunities and also challenges facing us now and probably into the future as well. Like I mentioned before, 60% of trips are under 5 miles. So a lot of great opportunities to shift those trips to non-motorized or other non-auto modes. We saw that almost 90% of trips stay in the county. So we've done a good job of developing job centers and destinations for folks here in the county. And so we need to continue to work on that and support that going forward. There's a focus on city center growth in the county. We see urban growth boundaries in our jurisdictions. And most local plans have a serious commitment to city center growth. So these policy commitments make it easier to walk, bike, and use transit in our built up areas, and will also improve accessibility and safety. And then over the last year, we've seen how telecommuting and just not making trips has a lot of potential to reduce total travel and VMT and the associated impacts, or at the very least to shift travel to less congested time periods. So along with the opportunities, we have a lot of challenges facing us still. Over the last 5 or so years, we've seen how emergencies can really impact travel conditions and patterns in the county, both during the actual events, but also based on displacement afterwards as people's travel patterns change. We've also seen that travel in the county continues to be focused on automobiles. And we saw as well that even though most of our travel stays in the county, those long trips entering and leaving the county each day contribute a lot of vehicle miles traveled and associated emissions and other impacts in our communities. So with that, let's go to the next slide. And at this point, I'll go ahead and turn things back over to Dana.
Thank you, Chris. Chapter 3 lays out the current transportation system in Sonoma County. It discusses transportation projects and the vision for the future, as well as trends and innovation by mode. This chapter covers roads and highways, the bicycle and pedestrian system, the transit system, and programs that support non-single occupancy auto modes. Next. There are over 2,600 miles of public roadway in Sonoma County, which is far greater than the other counties in the region, including those with a much higher population. Over half the roadway mileage is in the unincorporated county. The estimated cost to maintain a state of good repair on our roads is $3 billion over the next 3 years. And these roads see over 1.6 million trips on an average weekday. Here we have listed some of the top trip generators in Sonoma County. Next. The roads and highways projects submitted for the CTP include improvements to highway interchanges, intersections, intelligent transportation systems and new technologies, multimodal streetscape improvements, road improvements, maintenance, including bridge replacements. And the estimated costs for these projects through 2050 total $4,036 million. Next. The intelligent transportation systems are constantly evolving and can improve safety and efficiency. The wide rollout of autonomous vehicles has not come as quickly as we may have thought, but still must be carefully planned to avoid potential negative impacts, including increased vehicle miles traveled and greenhouse gas emissions. Next. The next section is on bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. And although only about 8% of trips in Sonoma County are taken by bicycle or walking, we found that in the travel behavior study, it shows that there's good potential to shift trips to these modes. There are approximately 208 miles of bikeway on the ground now and over 1,000 more planned. Next. There are 111 bicycle and pedestrian projects in the plan. The submitted projects over $1 million are listed individually, and the projects under $1 million are consolidated in a list of one per jurisdiction. Implementation of all of these 111 bicycle and pedestrian projects, including those 1,000 miles of bicycle lanes, is estimated to cost $860 million. All right, thank you. A majority of the planned bicycle projects are on-road class 2 lanes or class 2 buffered lanes. Class 1 separated pathways and class 3 make up the next largest categories. And there are currently just 2 miles of class 4 lanes planned. Next. So 2020 was a big year for biking and walking, with COVID-19 restrictions, closed gyms, and changed and limited routines. Many people spent more time outdoors, taking walks and riding bikes. And across the country, bicycling increased an estimated 20%, and 1 in 10 American adults rode a bike for the first time in a year. Bicycle sales increased by roughly 65%, and electric bicycle sales increased by 145%. The slow street or open street movement picked up as there was more demand for space to walk while physical distancing and for open air dining. And some jurisdictions have taken steps to make these temporary changes permanent. Next. The public transit system in Sonoma County includes services from 6 agencies and covers the wide stretches of our geography, with more services concentrated in the more populated areas. In 2019, there were over 4.4 million rides on public transit in Sonoma County. A large portion of transit riders are low income, and a large percentage of riders in Sonoma County do not have access to a vehicle. High school and college students also make up a large portion of transit riders. Next. Transit projects submitted for the CTP include non-capital operations expansion, capital projects for buses, shelters, and facilities, as well as new technologies. Here's a sampling of the kind of projects, transit projects that were submitted for the CTP, and these total over $5 billion. Next. Trends in innovation in transit include microtransit with dynamic trip routing and on-demand service, improved technologies for trip planning and fares, transit priority projects that allow transit to bypass traffic congestion, and there's a future potential for automation of transit vehicles. Next. Mode shift programs, often referred to as transportation demand management or TDM, are a collection of methods and actions intended to improve the efficiency of the existing transportation system by reducing demand for single occupancy vehicle travel. This is especially so and often focused on peak commute times. Projects included in the CTP under this category include Green Trip Sonoma County, which would customize and pilot the use of one or more Green Trip tools for Sonoma County, and a Transportation Management Association, which would provide a variety of transportation demand management services to individuals and groups of employers, including sales and promotion of transit products and essential information source for travel options, including those that reduce vehicle miles traveled, and management of incentives. Next. So here are some of the mode shift programs that are underway now and are discussed in the plan. And with that, I will turn it back over to Chris for chapter 4.
Great, thanks, Dana. And yeah, chapter 4 really covers plan performance, how we evaluate that, and how we really dig into the projects and policies and look at how they can help us reach the plan goals. Next slide, please. So we use analysis tools like the Sonoma County Travel Model to evaluate the CTP by asking these sorts of questions, including what are current conditions, or how close are we to achieving CTP goals now? How will CTP projects help us achieve those goals? And then what else can we do? And what other planning and policy efforts are underway that can help support these efforts? Next slide, please. So when we're evaluating performance, we need some sort of measuring stick. So we use performance measures to evaluate the plan. So as Janet introduced earlier in this presentation, we've updated all of the plan goals as part of this plan update and reevaluated performance measures, added a few, removed some, changed some as required, and looked at how they relate to multiple goals. So on this chart, you can see each of the performance measures in that far left column, and then the goals up top. So connected, reliable, safe and well maintained, community oriented and place-based, and zero emissions. And each of those X's represent which of those performance measures could be associated with making good progress in each of those, for each of those goals. Next slide, please. So on to the results of the performance evaluation. So we employed all of those tools, looked at the different projects, and these are the results. So first, we saw that the plan provides improved transit service and ridership. It provides an expanded bicycle and pedestrian system and increased connectivity. And I believe on an earlier slide, Dana showed that there's an increase of over 800 miles of bicycle pedestrian connectivity and facilities. We saw shorter travel times and trips and better access to employment and destinations. Next slide, please. Household travel costs went down slightly. And we also saw vehicle miles traveled and greenhouse gas emissions trend downward on a per capita basis. And I would say this is just kind of the high level look at the results. In the plan and on these slides specifically, you can see more detail here. Next slide, please. So it's always important to point out that the tools we use, like the travel model and other evaluation tools, are really focused on looking at regional and countywide conditions. And a lot of the projects in the plan are really focused on providing local benefits. Things like local safety improvements, improved experience for transit riders at actual stops, increasing neighborhood mobility and connectivity, and other small scale local benefits. So one thing that our performance assessment doesn't pick up are these types of enhancements and improvements. Next slide, please. So we also saw a few remaining challenges. So some of these we saw at the beginning of the process as well, things like continued reliance on automobiles. So even though overall transit ridership and walking and biking went up, the share stays about the same as it is today. We saw increased traffic congestion and delay, particularly in the peak periods, the commute periods in the morning and evening. There are significant maintenance needs and funding shortfalls. So as Janet said, the 10 billion list of projects is largely unfunded and financially unconstrained. So, and then we also saw no countywide reduction in collision rates. I will mention that the countywide Vision Zero project is specifically intended to reduce collision rates and improve safety in Sonoma County. So how do we achieve the CTP vision and goals? There are a number of different actions called out here on this slide. So I won't go through each of those specifically, but just in a general sense, we need to work with partners to implement policies and programs where we don't have jurisdiction. We need to look for additional funding sources to fund projects that will help us achieve our goals. We need to advocate for supportive policy making at all levels of government. We need to encourage behavior change wherever and however we can, and really make equity a part of every decision-making process that we're involved in. Next slide, please. Okay, so there are a number of parallel or completed planning efforts that are underway that directly address a lot of the goals outlined in the CTP and support those efforts. So a few of those include the Shift Sonoma County Plan, which focused on shifting travel away from auto travel and shifting fuel use away from carbon-based fuels. There's the Sonoma County Mobilization Strategy, which is focused specifically on addressing greenhouse gas reduction and provides a lot of detail on how to do that here in Sonoma County locally. And then finally, the Sonoma County Vision Zero effort is focused on improving travel safety and reducing deaths from collisions, and with a target of 0 collision-related deaths. Next slide, please. So here's some high-level data or detail on the Shift Sonoma County Plan. It's available on our website if you'd like to really dig into that. There's a lot of information in that plan. So there are 2 primary focuses of the Shift Sonoma County planning effort. One is to shift modes from automobiles to non-auto modes by implementing things like transportation demand management programs and implementing bike and car sharing. And then on the secondly, looking at shifting from low carbon fuels for the remaining vehicles and automobiles on the road by prioritizing electric vehicle adoption and expanding access to electric vehicle charging stations. Next slide, please. So the Sonoma County Climate Mobilization Strategy is relatively new. This is really focused on how we'll be able to meet our greenhouse gas reduction goals and needs here in Sonoma County. So there are a lot of really detailed actions outlined in this strategy, but just a few include building a network that makes it safe to bike and walk. Developing a next generation transit system for Sonoma County, implementing parking and pricing policies, developing over 10,000 public and workspace charging stations in Sonoma County, looking at barriers for installing charging equipment and limiting fossil fuel infrastructure, supporting the use of electric bicycles and other lightweight vehicles, really increasing the use of heavy duty EVs, creating an accessible and affordable EV assistance service, and then finally developing a VMT mitigation bank for new development to help fund transportation demand management and reduce VMT. So at this point, I'll go ahead and pass things back over to Janet.
Thanks, Chris. So we have $10 billion in projects on our project list. About half of them are in transit. It is an unconstrained list. We don't have identified funding for most of it. We are lucky in that we do have $800 million of local funds to leverage other funding, outside fund sources to deliver projects. Next, please. We are now in the public comment phase of the project, taking comments until August 13th. And we'll be bringing this back to our board for approval in September. And with that, next slide, please. We're here to answer any questions or take any comments you may have.
Thank you, Janet and Chris. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
Just wonder, given that, you know, the population increase in older adults in the county, I didn't see any data on the people with disabilities and any of that population reflected in the transportation plan. I'm just wondering what's being done to plan for that. The modes of travel among older adults are not likely to be by bicycle. Most of their trips are medical or healthcare in nature. So I'm just wondering, because I know equity is really big in everything that we're doing, but for me in advocating for older adults and people with disabilities, you can't have equity in paratransit if paratransit service is tied to a bus stop location. So those are just my comments.
Dina, would you like to address that?
Yeah, I think, you know, if we can take a look at the demographics section and see what type of detail is in the plan, and if there's any kind of more detail needed. So I appreciate that comment. In terms of the projects, and maybe Janet wants to touch on this a little more, the projects that are included in the plan were projects that were submitted, for the most part, projects that were submitted by local jurisdictions or transit agencies for the plan. And most of the transit projects are fairly broad. You know, a large pot of funding needs for service operations, you know, a large chunk for capital, which includes buses, paratransit vehicles, station upgrades and whatnot. So that's maybe sort of broad, but yeah, I think that we could definitely look into the demographics more and see where people with disabilities fits in.
Hi, Steve.
I'm just looking at the project list from the District 4 bike plan. And it seems to have more projects than I remember from our own plan. And I'm wondering where those fit into the overall plan.
So all of the projects in the District 4 plan in Sonoma County should be in the CTP. The projects listed in the CTP project list are only the large projects over $1 million. And the others are in the countywide bike plan. So if you see anything particular in the Caltrans plan that's not in there, I would be very interested to know what projects those are, because it should be consistent. And when it was a couple of years ago that the Caltrans bike plan was completed, and so I'm not sure if I'm remembering every project, but I believe that they should all be in plans in our countywide plan.
Okay, the 1 million threshold may solve it. Thank you.
Sure. And Steve, maybe I'll just add on to your question you put in the chat about why there were so few Class 4 bike lanes planned. Class 4 bike lanes were adopted for approved for use in California I believe it was, well, it's fiscal year 17-18. So most of the local bike plans in Sonoma County were updated before that, with the exception of Santa Rosa. And so that's where there are class 4 bike lanes planned.
Yeah, I did see your message. It would seem to me that most class 2 bike lanes could be considered for class 4. So that's a issue for the future, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions on the CTP? All right, great. Well then, moving on, are there any items people would know right now that they would like to hear on the next agenda, which is September 21st? All right, how about any other business comments or announcements? All right, hearing none, thank you all for being here today, and we will see you again on September 21st.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.